Hi everyone, it's me, Peyton. I'm coming at you from the North Georgia Tennessee line, and I am back with my friend Christina, and she got invited to do jury duty this week, and she has a different perspective on it because I think a lot of us have had the first version of her perspective a lot, and her perspective on it shifted a little this week, and I thought it was very, very interesting. So, do you want to tell us about it, Christina?
Yeah, it's so interesting because anytime I had gotten a jury summons, I'm trying to think, I've been chosen once several years ago. But anyway, anytime I think of jury duty, I didn't want to do it. Just you have to drive out of your way. You only get $15 a day. You're spending your whole day there. This is just such an inconvenience. I have to take time off work, la la la, like all of the things. It just is inconvenient. I didn't like it at all. And my husband, he has been chosen for two juries. One was a civil case, the other one was a murder case. And he got really excited about both of them. He'd come home and be like, I feel so good. Obviously, he couldn't share the details about the case. And he could only share certain things even after it was done. But he was just so excited to do it. And I didn't understand why. And this last week, him and I were talking about me going in for my jury summons. I was not chosen. I didn't even get to go into the courtroom to have the judge ask me any questions. Our group just was not chosen to go in. But after hearing Zach's perspective, talking to him for a little while, and then going in myself, I realized that it actually is a good way for us to be able to make a more direct impact. And you saw it in my story on my Instagram, I used the word have our opinions heard. And several people responded back. We had some really great conversations. And I was trying to figure out a better way to say it because it's not necessarily we're going in there to share our opinions. We're there to observe, witness, and get all of the the evidence, all of the facts put out in front of you, see both sides present their arguments, and then you go over all of that information and make non-biased opinions. You come to a conclusion or a decision based on the laws and everything that's provided. And several people responded back to me in my story when I shared that this is actually a good thing for us. We shouldn't think of it as such a negative thing because yes, it is an inconvenience, but you almost have more weight in on a panel of jurors than you do voting, which is kind of crazy to think about that your voice, you are on a smaller panel of jurors and your vote, whether whatever case it is, holds more weight. It's just baffling to me to think of it that way. And it's so cool and a way for us to kind of get excited about it versus thinking of it as such a negative thing. And some people shared their experiences, some people uh civil cases. The civil case that I was on was dismissed a couple days in, so I wasn't for some I think it was some reason that wasn't necessarily related to the decision making. We didn't even get to the point where we got to delegate or not delegate. I'm trying to think of the word when you talk back and forth with the other jurors. But we see things on TV. We hear about all these things happening, and a lot of people, oh, well, they should have done this. They should have done this. People should be doing this. They're not following the law, and da 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 da. But if you're on on a panel of jurors in the jury, you can actually weigh in on that decision based on all the information provided because you're not going in there to just share your opinions. But, some people say, oh, well, this case turned out this way because they weren't doing it by the law, really. But how do you know for sure if you're not actually on the jury? You know that you can actually make that decision or help with the decision process and uphold the law if you're actually chosen to be a juror. I'm trying to figure out better ways to word it, but I feel like it's super powerful to think about.
Well, on a jury, you have a 1 in 12 voice. And if the judge weighs in, it's 1 in 13. So it's a higher percentage than like 1 in a billion in a vote. So it's definitely a way higher percentage. I mean,
It's
even if you were to just do your local city, it's still a higher percentage. So,
Yep.
and I think we've all seen the sticker that says act locally, think globally. And it's kind of the same thing. You are doing an act of service locally in your like area, but hopefully you have the well-being of humankind in your heart.
And some of the people's stories that they shared with me in my DMs, it sounds so weird to say it like that. In my DMs, someone was chosen for a child abuse court case, and that being able to see the look on the family's faces when they announced their verdict. I only heard positives. I can't even, I have to look through, but definitely a handful of people said that they have not felt the same rewarding feeling as upholding the law, and really you're upholding justice. And I know that if I was ever in a situation where go into court and something happens, I would want the jurors to uphold the law as we would hope. And if we all, because there's so many people that will come up with excuses just to come up with excuses. And for me, even just sitting here right now, my back hurts. When I was in there yesterday, it is very, very uncomfortable. I had to stretch and move around to alleviate some of the pain. When I wasn't chosen, it was mixed feelings. I was happy because doing at least a week to 2 weeks, if I was on a bigger case that took longer than that, I would have to ask that. I even asked up front the women where you check in and whatnot, if there's ways for me to stand up and change my position so I'm not stuck in a seat for the entire time, because it is so painful for me. Because I came to the conclusion that I really do want to serve. I hadn't really thought about it before. I was chosen for the civil case, I tried to come up with every answer that I thought that would get me out of it. They still chose me. But this time around, I was kind of bummed, but also relieved, because it's it's a very uncomfortable thing for me to do. But just the mindset around it has definitely shifted. And it's not just serving on a jury that my mindset has shifted. It's about, this new movie that came out, right? Sound of Freedom. And yes, you can donate to all of the different groups that help with that stuff, but I was taking action and actually doing something. Katie Jean, one of the other ambassadors in this area, we're contacting people to see if maybe there are some entities local to us that we might be able to volunteer with and make an impact that way. I feel like culturally, and I'm trying to think the other word for it, but in general, culturally, a lot of us just don't, it's an inconvenience. We don't want to do that stuff. Someone else is going to take care of it. We point fingers at other people. This didn't happen. Well, I voted and that's it. Many people say, well, my vote doesn't count. Well, if you don't vote at all, then you're making it an absolute, you set the line of where no one's going to hear your voice because you're not even attempting to put your voice out there. But it's more than just that. Serving on a jury, you're able to have a direct impact, or volunteering with local entities. As you're saying, local people are thinking, oh, well, in order to make a difference, I have to run for office, I have to have this much money, I have to do all of this. And this ties into the other call, the other interview that you did with me about the encouragement box. Every single one of us have the power to better ourselves as individuals and make positive impacts as an individual. And my mind is just blown by all the opportunities that I have as an individual that I never realized before because I was closed off to it. I told myself I couldn't do anything, so I didn't see any opportunity. Once I started thinking about it, the opportunity just, it's not that they all of a sudden just started showing up because I was thinking about it. Because I was thinking about it, my mindset shifted. I'm able to see different things, different opportunities. Instead of looking at all the negative, all the positive are popping up. If you've ever played the Volkswagen bug game where you like pinch each other, you go, oh, I call, or if you see a
Punch
yellow
bug.
bug, yellow, yeah, punch bug. Yeah, we would do pinching or punching. So if you think about it, then you're going to see more of them. It doesn't change the fact that the same amount of Volkswagen bugs are out there than there were before. Just the fact that you're thinking about it and you're looking for it, that's what you're going to find. So if your mindset is shifted to, oh, well, jury duty sucks, it's so inconvenient, I can't do anything, I have no power, I live in California, so everybody's like, there's nothing I can do, I don't like our governor, oh, like this all sucks. If that's what we think, that's what we're going to see. And that's all that's going to happen. It's either going to stay the same or get worse if we have that mindset. If we shift our mindset to, I want to do more, I can do more, I'm going to better myself as an individual and focus on the things that I have control over, which no one, we don't have control over outside circumstances. The only things that we have 100% control over are our thoughts and our actions.
Mhm.
And some people can argue, well, I struggle with anxiety and depression, and I've struggled with suicidal ideations. Those initial thoughts will pop up in your head. You can't really help the initial thoughts, but how you respond, that internal dialogue, and what your actions are afterwards, you can either feed into it and go into that loop, take actions that take you down a negative path or a path further from where you want to go, or you can consciously make that decision to do something different and think differently and act differently. It's not easy to do. It takes a long time. I've been working on this for about 2 years.
Mhm.
And overall, I have kind of a silver lining type mindset to begin with. So it might be a little bit easier for me than from other people that are like my husband. It's taken a very long time for him to shift his mindset about work, especially when we first met. Anything, he was not used to things not being more controlled, or like he was good at everything in school. He was good at sports. He's always been good looking and never overweight. He's always been muscular. So he hasn't really struggled in those areas. Yes, his parents both had to work like multiple jobs when he was young. Like he didn't grow up in the most affluent areas, but him as an individual, he didn't have to struggle so much to be successful. But once he went into the workforce after college, real world hit him. He couldn't get a job initially. When he was getting jobs, it wasn't really right. The people that were, it just wasn't the right fit, but also the people around him had a different mindset and he was struggling and he didn't know how to manage that stress. So it's taken him, we've been together since 2012 until more so this last year. He is so much happier at work because he's realizing he doesn't have control over what everybody else does. He's focusing more on what he has control over and doing the best he can and going the extra mile with his clients. He works for Wells Fargo as a banker, and he's not pushing for sales. He hasn't been that type of person to begin with, but when everybody's putting pressure on him for sales, like he's stressed over that. But now he's more focused on how can he, which he's always been focused on it, but he would stress about all the other things, right? But now he's focused on what can he do to help the client be the best communicator, best advocate, and go the extra mile if he needs. And he's happier when he comes home because he's not stressing about all these numbers, stressing about so and so doing stuff. Yes, he stresses, but his mindset is shifted. The situation itself hasn't shifted. It's his mindset and what actions he's focusing on taking that has changed. And it's our marriage has gotten better. Before, when him and I have been close to divorce at least once, like very, very close. And I was also in a different mindset then, where I was more focused on like, I don't know what he's doing, like he's not doing this and blah, blah, blah. I was looking more so at what he was doing versus I shifted my mindset of how do I get better mentally? How do I get better physically? How can I, because I'm medically retired and it's difficult to get a job that will accommodate my physical restrictions. How do I find a way to lean into the strengths that I have in order to potentially bring more income in so we're not so stressed about that? Once I started focusing more on myself and doing better myself, he started doing the same. We stopped doing this and pointing fingers at each other. Yes, we still do it every once in a while. We're married. It's kind of inevitable. I think that's just part of it. But I started hitting the gym. I started working all that stuff. And then he started doing the same. When I was trying to get him to do it, he didn't want to do it. When I just started doing it, he saw what I was doing and he was like, oh, I kind of want to do that too. And then he started talking to my coach and him. So, long story, all these examples, if we focus on ourselves and lead by example, we can make the biggest impact in more ways than one. Talking about jury duty is just one example of how we, percentage wise, we have a huge amount of weight in helping with decisions and upholding the law how we believe it should be. But it's more than just that. So, I could talk for hours. I go on tangents, but I feel like I relatively stayed on topic.
I love you so much though. And I've been reading the Constitution a lot lately, and I agree. I do believe it all starts within and in our minds. And once we make that decision to change our mindset, the world changes around us. And it's not that the world changed, it's that we changed and are starting to see what is there, what's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
So it all starts within. But I'm super glad we are friends.
Me
Where
too.
can I find you?
On Instagram, Moose and Kaya. I just started a Threads. I'm still working on figuring that out. It's the same handle. And I am on Facebook, but not as active. I will be starting a YouTube channel at some point. I'm working on making content for that. That will be called Christina's Garage Gearhead in Training. It is not active yet, but if you want updates and whatnot, make sure to follow me on Instagram.
I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you
you.
so much.